We might already be in the month of May, but the Baylor Bears have a very real chance of getting the one or two transfer portal pieces they need to get into the preseason top five. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday to you. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Monopoly Go. I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. There's been growing concern about the basketball transfer portal now that Baylor's missed on Jonas Adu. What are they going to do to get that center, to get that wing, round out this starting lineup? Where do we look to, Cam? Well, I'll put that question to Isaac Trotter, who is one of the very best college basketball writers in the game. Works for 247 as well as CBS Sports, and he knows everything about every team around the country. I've never seen anything like it. And he loved the Jeremy Roach edition, as we all did, but he also has the answers for what they missed out on Jonas Adu and how Baylor can move forward. So without any further ado, want to get into that interview as he outlines who Baylor can still attack and what the expectations would be for the preseason rankings. Take it away, Isaac. Here with Isaac Trotter covering national college basketball for CBS Sports and 247 Sports as well. And really, I mean, one of the resident experts on the transfer portal that we have right now. I mean, not many cover them quite like Isaac does. So, Isaac, thank you so much for joining the show. And first, let me open with what is the stage that we're at right now in the portal? The guys' names are in, and now it's just kind of a waiting game, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that sound you heard is a lot of coaches exhaling as they check the portal one more time and be like, wait, are we sure we got all of our guys? Like no one else entered in. So yeah, we're close to 2,000 names in the transfer portal in this class, by far the most since the portal has ever come into play. I don't think this is going to stick or like this stay around for a while. This is going to be the record for a few more years, I think, just because when the COVID year seniors are gone, that number I think will go down next couple cycles. But yeah, the portal is closed, and now we have, I think we're at around like 700 guys have committed. So now we're looking at probably close to 1,000 that have decisions to make. Wow. And there's limited spots too. Yeah. So we've said often from the beginning, going into the portal doesn't mean you exit the portal. So there are going to be some guys that are like, wait, there's no room for me at certain spots. So there's a lot of moving pieces right now at this point. But I think if you're a team like Baylor, what do you have? 4 open scholarships at this point. Yeah. Maybe you add 3, potentially add a 4th. It's not a horrible time because there's a lot of big names that still have big time decisions to make.
For sure. And we are going to look at, of course, who Baylor is going to target. But one thing I found interesting, and I'm just wondering what you're hearing from coaches or from players or people in a program, do you think coaches are more comfortable in this time? Maybe some that are not at the highest level, like a Baylor or a Kansas or an Arkansas with Calipari now, but can kind of say, okay, here's what is in the portal. You know, we're not going to sign somebody and then someone we could have gotten that's better is going to come out in 2 weeks. Like the names are in. Do you think that's a more comfortable spot for a lot of coaches?
I think it's huge. I thought the rule change this year to make sure that graduate transfers have to be in by May 1st was awesome because think about last year. Cam Spencer hit the portal about May 20th. That like completely changed the complexion of what UCONN was. And I don't think they win a second straight national title without him. And he's arguably like, if you go down the transfer portal rankings, if we're going to re-rank it from last year's cycle, he was probably a top 5 transfer, maybe top 3. Him and Dalton Connect are right there in that conversation. Yeah. And he came available May 20th. Paul Mulcahy entered the portal on June 9th last year. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, it's at the middle of June, like you're entering the portal. So I think the new rule of having guys have to be in by May 1st it was really needed because now we have like a real list of like, here's who's in, and more importantly, who's staying. And I think it kind of cuts out like all of the BS because for the last 45 days, it's been, well, who's going, who's staying? Let's be honest, guys. Like there's tampering left and right. There's coaches, there's assistants trying to toss money out, telling high school coaches how much money we could get you. Hey, you hit the portal. Like, hey, we're going to get you some money. So I think it's really important to have a legit deadline And I think for Baylor, they kind of cleared this on the good end, because Langston Love would have had a big market if he hit the portal. I think Jaden Nunn, if he hit the market, would have had a big or hit the portal, would have had a big market as well. So to keep those two guys is almost as important as who they go out and get.
Yeah, and you actually led me right into it, because I was going to ask you about those guys who were able to stay, and I think that was part of an article that you put out that I'm going to mention in a minute about why Baylor was a winner in terms of the portal. You know, you see that they only bring one guy in, Jeremy Roach, who we are going to talk about as well, but you talk about a guy in Jaden Nunn who started every game for Baylor last year, won a Big 12 Player of the Week, had some big performances. Langston Love battles the injuries, but for that, he would have been the Big 12 Sixth Man of the Year. So what were you hearing in terms of, you know, I mean, these guys could have been Power 5 starters potentially. Am I wrong?
No doubt. I mean, I think if you're thinking about transfer portal rankings, you're probably putting Langston Love as a top 40 to 50 transfer. You're probably putting Jaden Nunn as a top 50 to 75 transfer, in that range. So yes, your portal class is small right now, but if you think about it, like, hey, we have kept two of our top 75 maybe potential transfers. That's how I kind of look at it. And, you know, I think we'll have time to dive into who teams have added, but yeah, for that piece, it's all about like who you were able to keep, because both of those guys could have easily been, you know, high major starters. And then the other thing too, the last few cycles that we've noticed, getting a transfer is awesome, but keeping them for that second year, we've seen some major jumps. And so if I'm looking at Jaden Nunn, I'm like, man, there's a potential here for him to get, I mean, he was good last year, but you could see a path for him to take another step forward. And I don't know if he's going to be like that Mark Sears, where he becomes an All-American in year 2 at Alabama, or maybe, you know, like Tyler Cole, right? Like, you don't know, like, I'm not going to sit back. But I do think it's in the realm of potential outcomes for him to be significantly better next year. And so keeping a guy like that is huge, because if you get a transfer, that's great. You keep a transfer for a second year, that's when you can see some special things.
Passion, drive, patience. Those 3 things win in the transfer portal, and it's also the formula to keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. So with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. Not like the transfer portal, exactly what you want. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber. You're not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into the MVP and bring home the huge win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. And that eBay guaranteed fit is only available to our U.S. customers. And one of the reasons those guys could have been big names in the portal is because this loaded backcourt that Baylor's going to have. I mean, you talk about those guys plus a Rob Wright and VJ Edgecombe out of the high school ranks, top 25 guys, in VJ's case, top 5. And of course, they add Jeremy Roach. Now, I kind of see 2 sides of Jeremy Roach, both good in terms of what Baylor's bringing in. And there's the tangible, which is pretty good. He's an all-ACC player. And then the intangible stuff, the 92 starts, the Final Four, all of that, playing at Duke in general and being, you know, almost a 4-year starter there. What does Jeremy Roach bring to the table as someone who's followed him pretty close?
Yeah, it's just a different gear. I think what you're looking at is he is not Ray J. Dennis 2.0. He's very different with what his game is. But I just feel like Jeremy Roach is a chameleon. He basically can play with anybody and everybody. And think of the guys that he had to play with throughout his tenure at Duke. Like, he got to learn and play different roles for really different teams. And he kind of grew and evolved as an on-ball guy. Now I'm going to play a little bit off-ball. Now I'm going to split around like my role a little bit. Sometimes I'm guarding the best player. Sometimes I'm not. Like, it's just, he had to kind of be a chameleon and kind of assimilate to all of these different teams. And I think that Baylor's probably going to get the best version of him. And let's be honest, like, every transfer portal relationship is speed dating, and you're kind of like seeing like, how does this like marriage kind of work? Baylor is just as good for Jeremy Roach as I think Jeremy Roach will be for Baylor. So there's going to be an opportunity for him to put up career best years because he's had a good career. But I mean, his career high in points is 14 points a game. He will blow right past that, I think, at Baylor. Just when you look at I think he had like a 21% usage rate last year at Duke. You're sharing the ball, Kyle Filipowski. You got to get Tyrese Proctor his shots. Got to get Caleb Foster some shots. You got to get Jared McCain his shots. Baylor has some of the same things where they have a lot of talented guys, but that Roach usage rate, I think, is going to be probably closer to that 25-26% range. And so say you bump up Jeremy Roach's stats from this past year, 14 points and 4 assists or whatever, you bump that up 25%, you're kind of looking at like a 17 points a game guy. And if that's what that, occurs, maybe he's a Big 12 Player of the Year candidate. So it's a really good marriage, I think, for both sides because he doesn't have a lot of flaws offensively. And I feel like he's played in a lot of different systems. He can do a lot of different things offensively. And I just feel like the hit rate with Baylor guards lately in the portal has just been so high. The bar for Roach is really, really high, but the floor I think is super high too, just because I just don't see this really, bottoming out.
Oh man, now you got me excited. You got me real excited, Isaac. And you were the one who told me actually on the Matt Mosley show on ESPN Central Texas that this guy can actually play off the ball, which is something that is welcome for us here at Baylor because you look at since the national championship, the guys they brought in at point guard, and look, they've all been good, right? James Akinjo, Keontae George, Ray J. Dennis, of course, last year, but all guys who had a couple of things in common. One being that they were only going to be 1 year, like Jeremy Roach, but guys who needed the ball in their hands, whether they were scorers like, Keontae George or combos like James Akinjo or more of a distributor. These guys needed the ball, and there was always kind of a ceiling there. But it sounds like that Jeremy Roach is kind of that rare form as a guy who can play off the ball, can play with a guy like Rob Wright, a top 25 player in the nation and a top 3 point guard in the nation in high school. Am I getting that right? That he can actually play off the ball and kind of keep this thing cohesive?
Yeah, no question. And I got some numbers for you for it.
43, yes.
Yeah, here we go. 43% last year on catch and shoot threes. That's a really great number just for off the bounce guys. And then off the bounce, right? We talk about the ball in your hands, 40% on off the dribble twos. Like that's a good number. He shot 58% at the rim for a guy who's a little bit undersized in the ACC. So those are all fantastic numbers. And the other part about his offensive game that I really like is it's not just jump shots. Like he's able to get to the rim, not only converting at the rim at a high rate, but he's also getting to the rim at a high rate too. I think 33% of his shots last year were at the rim. So you don't want those one-dimensional guards who can only shoot jumpers. Like he can actually, like a lot of people would be like, oh, I'm a 3-level scorer. Like Roach is legitimately a 3-level scorer. He gets the rim, he has that mid-range game, and he also can knock down shots from 3. And playing without the basketball is not going to be a problem. And I think that the model that we've started to see with some of these elite offenses is you don't necessarily have that traditional quote-unquote point guard. You're just kind of looking for those guys that can make plays off the bounce. Like, and Roach feels a little bit like Cam Spencer in that regards, where it's like last year for that UConn team, it's like Tristan Newton could play the 1, and then Cam Spencer sometimes initiating the offense, and sometimes it's Steph Castle initiating the offense. For Baylor, I think you're starting to see that too, where it'll be VJ Edgecombe initiating the offense at times, and maybe it's Rob Wright, and then maybe it's Langston Love, and maybe it's Jaden Nunn, and then maybe it's Jeremy Roach. Like it's a lot of those different, like we can kind of hit you from a lot of different spots. And I think when you're trying to match up hunt and find like those weakest defenders, you need different guys that can make plays off the bounce, that are comfortable initiating offense, maybe comfortable playing off the ball. And I think Baylor's starting to put that together. So there's a long history here of Scott Drew putting together one of the top 15 offenses in college basketball. I had the stat. I think 15 in the last 17 years or something dumb like that. It's just crazy. The pieces are already in place for this to happen again, because this backcourt has a lot of different ways that they can beat you.
It does. And honestly, Isaac, I'm going to go out on a limb here. It does remind me of 2021 when they won the national championship. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but in terms of you had Davion Mitchell, you had Jared Butler, and that was the last time I think Baylor's had a guy a backup point guard in Butler who can run the offense for 15 minutes a game and nothing really changes. I mean, Mitchell was better at the position, but nothing really changed. They were able to play off each other. They could always be on the court at the same time. So that's big to hear. And we obviously know the backcourt is stacked, right? We already named the guys. That's going to be no problem for Baylor. But now there seems to be a wrinkle in the front court. There are 3 guys on the Baylor roster that are 6'8" or above, and only one of them has played a second for Baylor, and that's Josh Ojamuna. And they had big targets. They had Cliff Amori as a target. They had Jonas Adu as a target, a guy who came out and visited, but earlier in the week, he commits to Arkansas instead. So how big of a loss is that for Baylor? And is it too late for them to find someone that is starting caliber in the portal in the front court?
Well, it's a great question because, I mean, I genuinely think if I was picking my favorite big man in the portal, it's Adu, just because I feel like he could do a lot of different things. I would have been really bullish on Baylor as a legit win the Big 12, win the national championship if they're able to add Adu. So to lose him stings because I genuinely think he's up there. And if you kind of look at what the portal is right now, a lot of good big men are gone. Like a lot of those big men have come off the board. So I like to split up. Sometimes I think it's like best available big men in the portal. Like that's not a really great, sometimes great things. Like I feel like we could pare it down even more. And I've been doing that a little bit lately where it's like, hey, you got stretch fours, you got small ball bigs, and you have true fives. I have like 3 legit true fives left on the board that are like legit, like high major definite starters. And it's Cliff Amori, who we've talked about, and he is a heavy North Carolina target right now. We'll see how that one goes. Ugonna Onyenso out of Kentucky is another one, a rim runner, shot blocker, and then Musa Cisse. Cisse, I don't know if that recruitment's going to be really. It's tough. There's a lot of hurdles there with that one, just from the academic side. He's transferred a lot. And as we've seen in this transfer portal cycle, guys who have transferred a lot have had a hard time getting their credits transferring over. So I don't know if I'd lean a bunch of stock into that. But right now, it's like the biggest asset right now in the portal is small ball bigs. There's Great Osaber, there's Norchad Omir, there's Van Allen Lubin. JT Toppin is a new name that I would keep an eye on out in New Mexico. Really good player, like him a lot. Sean Stewart. Ezra Osser out of East Carolina, who I like him too. So then there's like Mo Waggy and then Kajani Wright. Those are the couple others. But like I said, like there's not that many fives anymore. A lot of those top fives, Brandon Garrison has come off the board. We've seen Adu obviously come off the board. There's a couple other, Danny Wolf has come off the board. Vlad Golden has come off the board. So there's a lot of those traditional fives are gone. So I wonder now how much Baylor tries to pivot to maybe target some of those small ball fives to pair with Ojamuna, because that feels like maybe the market where there's the most actual gettable guys. There's not that many true fives left in the portal at this point.
Got to call a timeout on Isaac Trotter here. It's the part of the podcast that I get most fired up for. It's the time where we pause and we talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, Cam. You talk about this every day, and every day I get more excited because there's so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for those time tournaments. You work together, you build up each other's boards, and the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. There is so much to unlock, too. You got these unique stickers. You can trade with your friends, complete the albums, big prizes there. There are cool new playing pieces that you can travel the boards with, and there's even emojis for those friends you aren't working with to taunt them when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, with Monopoly Go, it really feels new and fresh and exciting every day because there's constantly changing tournaments and challenges, and a ton of these include their own mini games as well. There's always new timed events to help you win big, like the massive multipliers or the everything you win, or you can have these rent frenzies as well. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. All right, game back on. I wonder if Baylor can afford to do that, do a small ball five. I mean, we've seen that in the past. I mean, kind of in the national championship team, Flo Thamba was your guy in the middle who just wasn't giving you much offensively, especially. And like he did a job for them, but you also had the benefit of a Mark Vidal who was undersized rebounding machine. So you almost didn't need a big guy down there in the post. And the way that Baylor has played their offense, very spread out, 5 out, a lot of shooters on the floor. Do you think that they can afford with that style to go with the small ball five? It might not win you a very physical Big 12 conference, but would we see a huge drop off if they went to that kind of style?
No, I think it would be great. I think if you throw a Van Allen Lubin into this mix, like I think he should be a top target for every staff in the country, including Baylor's. I also think JT Toppin would be a really nice addition too, because if I think about like how I'm going to puncture like some of these elite Big 12 defenses, like with what the scheme that Houston does, with what the scheme that Iowa State does, I need big men who can pass. Like if your big men cannot like make decisions on the fly, like you are cooked against Houston, you are cooked against Iowa State, like you are cooked against some of these elite defenses. So that's where I'm looking at, like in the portal with my big man pursuit. I need a big that can actually make decisions on the fly in short roll situations, because I think you're going to have a lot of these guards that can really shoot it in this backcourt. And there's going to be times where I think blitzing Baylor and ball screens is something that Iowa State already does, Houston already does, but I think the teams that don't do it normally are going to do it to them anyway to try to get it out of these great guards' hands. You need that big man to be able to get that read, 4-on-3, where's my open shooter, and I'm finding him so that Langston Love can knock down a corner three. And like that's where I feel like the difference is with building out this roster, because I think OG Onwuna has the size and the rim protection and that rim running stuff to kind of cover that gap.
Mm-hmm.
I am trying to avoid positional overlap as much as possible with this next edition. So give me a big man that's different from OG Onwuna, that does some different things, so that I have like different pairings that I can go with, different matchups I can ride with. Maybe it's a 2-big lineup. Maybe it's, him at the small ball 5. Like, so that's like the type of addition that I'd be looking for if I was the Baylor staff. And guess what? The Baylor staff's way smarter than me. I'm sure that they've already had all these conversations too.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That is a good point, and kind of not having that redundancy down low. And one thing, we focus on the center because that's what seems the most glaring. You don't. I don't know that you have a starting center right now, as much as I like what Josh O can give you. The other thing though is Jalen Bridges is gone, and you have a Jason Asamoah coming in, who is someone who is. I don't know that he's going to be able to play 25, 30 minutes a game as a freshman. And so you need somebody, a starter quality, a wing that can shoot. I mean, to put it quite simply, Baylor's had that the last 4 years between, a Jalen Bridges and a Matthew Meyer. They've had that, some good consistency there. So how important is that for Baylor? And like my question with the centers, are there those guys left in the portal at this point?
There are a few, and I agree with you. I think that is a position of need. Kind of where their backcourt is shaping up. It feels like they have, Rob Wright, VJ Edgecombe, Jeremy Roach, Jaden Nunn, Langston Love. That's 5 guys for 3 spots at this point. With how talented that group is, I wonder how many 4-guard lineups they go to. But like the positional size that you don't have is real. Like Jalen Bridges had real positional size last year. That kind of changed it. Jacoby Walter, real positional size. This year, it's not quite necessarily the same if you're throwing Nunn and Roach out there together. A little bit undersized, like you're kind of have to you're giving up a little bit of time there. But all right, let's talk some stretch bigs. Coleman Hawkins, I think, would be an interesting name. He just entered the portal, late addition. He's really focused on the draft, but I think if he comes back to school, I don't think it will be at Illinois. And so he's a 5 who wants to play the 4. He had to play the 5 out of necessity last year, but a really great defender, shot it at a great level from 3-point range last year. So if he comes back to college, I think that'd be an interesting name.
That's a good Meyer switch. Matthew Meyer was like, I'm looking at the draft, but if not, I'm not coming back to Baylor, and he goes to Illinois. And that guy Hawkins could also give you, not having that positional redundancy like we talked about at the center. Okay, so it sounds like he can play a little bit of both.
Absolutely. I think that would be, that's a big name to watch, because if you look at the draft boards right now, like I think he wants to go pro, but he's not, like, if he doesn't hear that he's a guaranteed 2nd-round pick, I think he can have a market where he's, a big time asset in the portal. Here's another one, Nate Santos out of Dayton. Really, really good shooter. And again, last year he played with Deron Holmes, and I think he shot over 40% from 3. Now, not on a ton of volume, but if you're looking for a stretch 4 that can really shoot it, he fits the vibe there really well. Some other names, again, the wing position, there's not a ton of great ones left. There's Dylan Mitchell out of Texas. That's a little bit of a familiar face there, but we'll see where he wants to go. Jackson Robinson out of BYU is a heavy target for a lot of teams. Big time shooter. You want someone with positional size who can shoot the cover off the ball. Jackson Robinson's kind of your guy. One other one too that I'm really bullish on is Jalen Wells out of Washington State. Again, some of the intel that we've heard on him is that we're not sure he's going to want to come back to college next year. He looks like a guy who could probably stay in the NBA draft, but if he does, I would be all about that life, because he's 6'8", and he can, again, really, really great shooter. And he can not only just shoot off the catch, but he comes off movement too. and can shoot it at a high level too. So that's where like Baylor's at an interesting spot because they're kind of one of those only teams that have cap space left, which can be a blessing and a curse because you see like Houston's full and Kansas is pretty much full at this point. We'll see what Johnny Furphy wants to do. But like, and Baylor has 4 open scholarships and that's scary. But at the same time, it is an opportunity to potentially, have the room both in the cap space and also in the roster to potentially go out and make a splash ad here in May. And May has been a good month to add big time transfers in the past, like in the past couple cycles. And I think it's going to be the same one again this cycle.
Yeah, and it's been helpful for Baylor too. That month of May has been sneaky pretty good for them. All right, before I let you go, Isaac, we had kind of talked about, and this was kind of a consensus among a lot of analysts, that if Baylor was to add Jonas Adu a couple weeks ago when they were the favorite, that could have put them as a top 5 team in America and, potentially 3rd or 4th in the Big 12, but top 5 in America. And now, as we've talked about the last couple minutes here, you don't get Adu, but there's still some names out there that would fit Baylor's system very well, and they've got a loaded backcourt. So right now, what's kind of the range that you would have them if the season started tomorrow in terms of that preseason ranking?
Yeah, so I feel pretty good about like what Kansas has done for the most part. Still have some questions about them, but you feel pretty decent about it. I still don't know if they're going to guard anybody, but that's another
That'd
thing.
Be nice.
We'll break that down at another time maybe. Iowa State, I think, has done a good job with what they've added in the portal. Josh Jefferson out of St. Mary's, I think, was a really nice add. So they have like that mix of continuity with the nice transfer addition. So I think they're going to be good. Houston, same type of deal, just getting everybody back and then adding Milos Uzan. So yeah, I think those 3 teams feel like maybe like the tier 1 of the Big 12. And then I have like that 1A where it's like Baylor, if they add the right guys, Cincy, if they get the group together. I kind of like what Arizona has done so far, but they still have some big questions left to answer. Right? Like, does Caleb Love come back? Like, are they able to add another piece or two? So we still kind of have to see. Like, Arizona and Baylor are those 2 teams that I'm still kind of watching pretty closely because this next month for them is pretty huge to really find out if they're in that top 5 or that top tier of the Big 12. But for now, I think it's Iowa State. It's Iowa State, Kansas, and Houston. And then we're kind of putting an asterisk by Baylor and Arizona while we wait and see. And don't sleep on Cincinnati either. I think they've had a really, really good offseason. I think they're primed for a pretty big second year in the Big 12 jump.
I was banging the Wes Miller drum a little bit. I said, hey, look out for these guys in a couple of years. So that's great to have that insurance that Isaac Trotter is backing me up. By the way, I did reference the article a few times, but I didn't promote it. This is the transfer portal winners and losers. It's on 2-4 Sports. 247 Sports. Oregon, UNC, Iowa headline college basketball transfer portal deadline retention winners and losers. Just in case you needed to type it all in by our guy Isaac Trotter, you can follow him. You can find him there and at CBS Sports. You can follow him at Twitter at Isaac, and that's 2 underscores Trotter.
Yes, someone stole my first
underscore.
Yeah, someone stole my first underscore. So we're not cool, whoever that is.
I hate that. It's on site, bro. It's on site. Isaac, thank you so much for coming on and providing the insight. You might have dug yourself a hole here because it was so good that we'll probably need to have you on again sometime.
Sounds good, man. Anytime.
A special thank you once again to Isaac Trotter. I mean, do you guys believe me now? He knows everything about this game of college basketball and some great insight there on who Baylor can be looking at and potentially a Big 12 Player of the Year for Jeremy Roach. We'll just start manifesting that. I'll start manifesting that at least. Anyway, I know it's a stressful time. I'm pretty stressed out myself. I don't like getting into May, even though Baylor's had some wins in May, like we talked about. I don't love getting to May with a couple of big spots in your rotation open, but there are still guys out there. So let me know what y'all think about rounding out this starting lineup and where Baylor's going to be at the start of the season. Drop that down in the comments below. How you feel about the Jeremy Roach edition, please drop that down in the comments below too. And be sure to like and subscribe because we're dropping new videos here every day, 5 days a week. Sometimes on the weekends as well. It's all on the Locked On Baylor YouTube channel, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We will be back as soon as possible with your favorite show, which is, of course, Locked On Baylor.